Good morning, CSL Rockland. It is so wonderful to be with you today. Thank you, Reverend Melissa, for this invitation. And thank you, everyone, for being here and being fully present. Much appreciated. You know, there's nothing like international travel to show us how much we are alike than we are different. And I just want to share a story of what I feel like is spirit showing out, acting up, and that there is definitely one. So at one time in my life, I was working in Durban, South Africa. And I was there with a think tank, and we were there to create a math science school. That's fine. But on the off hours, I would walk around the city, walk around the beach. It was the most magnificent and beautiful experience. And in this sort of walk about the town, I saw a group of young girls, and I was stunned by what I saw because there were these little palm trees, right? And they were unthreading the leaves of the palm trees, and they were teaching each other how to braid the palm trees. And I was like, oh my God, I'm from Florida. And we used to unthread the palm trees and braid the palm trees before we practiced on each other's hair. You know, we did it there. Okay. So I was like, is this crazy? We don't speak the same language. We are in different age groups. It's across space, it's across time, it's across everything, but there it is. Like they say, a good idea in the mind of God cannot be held down. It knows no time or space, and it will express it. It will express through me, it will express through you. And there it was, expressing, reminding me that you're never too far from home, reminding me that there is only one infinite knowledge and infinite power. You know, we are all interconnected. There's this interconnection because God is running in and around and through us, and then we are connected with one another. And instances like that just remind me that the world is unfolding in a perfect pattern of perfection. So this morning, I get to speak about oneness, something I deeply believe in. It's one of the core beliefs of science of mind. And it says, the way I see it, it says, we believe in the individualization of spirit in us, and that all people are individualizations of the one spirit. And what that means is that each and every one of us is an expression of God. We are God playing as life. We are the embodiment of God. And this is a very core belief of our science of mind philosophy, that we each come from the same source and that we will return back to that source. So this life divine, it is mine and it is yours. And since there's only one, then we are one with each other. You might say, oh, but Mignonne, how is there only one? Why is there only one? How is that possible? Well, Ernest Holmes reminds us that there's one ultimate reality back behind all things, that there can't be two powers. Because if there were two powers, they would be different. And if those two powers were infinite, they would cancel out one another. I have been a diversity trainer for a really long time, and I like to think about it this way. There's a poster by a group called Tribal Rhythms, and it says, I'm pulling it up to read it because I took a picture of it. It's downstairs in my garage, so I don't ever forget it, right? It says, there was one person who made a circle to keep me out, so I made a circle to include us both. So what I like to think about this one power is there's one infinite large circle, if you may. It's infinite. It goes on forever and ever, and nothing is outside of that circle. No person, no event, no place, no thing. It's all within this one infinite life principle. And spiritual thinkers, spiritual leaders over time, all the great spiritual leaders have said there's this one force back behind all. And if you think about it, it's not difficult to think that this infinite spirit must be one perfect unit, because we all know that all physical forms are made of one universal energy. The energy is undivided and it takes form, but it's never divided against itself. So while the form changes, the energy remains the same. This concept of oneness, this concept of unity, that is the mystical secret of all ages. Now I have to go back to Ernest Holmes. He says, there's a difference between whether you believe God to be within you or outside of you. And what Ernest says, he says, for if God is outside of you, how are you going to reach this God who, not being some part of you, must be separated from you? How are you going to reach him? How can you hope to unite things which are different from one another? But if God, who is already within you, being forever perfect and complete, needs no reunion with anyone, you need no reunion with this God, because God is already in your every act, your every thought, your every moment, your every plan, your every purpose. And what I believe is that God is expressing as my very heartbeat. That is the very breath that I feel, is the very life force that runs through my body and spirit. There's no separation. Now I'm not saying that I am God. I'm not saying that I am God. God is greater than I am. I am not all of what God is, but God is all of what I am. I am not all of what God is, but God is all of what I am. Because I am an integral part, as each of us are an integral part of this unified whole. We're each like little pieces of this whole puzzle that is the puzzle that is life. Now in the Bible, Ephesians chapter 4, verses 1-7, there's one line, and it says in the Bible, even in the Bible, it says, there is one body and one spirit. And Ernest Holmes interprets this to mean that the entire creation is the body. Everything is the body of God, who is one spirit. And within this one body, within this creation, within everything, are all the bodies, which is the product of the one spirit. So the more you understand and connect with this one life principle, the more you can recognize it in yourself. And the more you recognize that in yourself, the more you can see it in others. So for me, I'm trying to do what there's a good teacher, Joel Goldsmith, he calls it practicing the presence. Looking for and recognizing God in my life, how it shows up every day in my everyday affairs, and how it shows up in each and every person, in each and every event. So I know for a fact that Spirit whispers to me daily by directing me, by guiding my steps. It shows me just what to do, which block to turn on to, which restaurant to go to, when to call and check in on someone. I just have to listen to those whispers. Spirit is always there. It's there in every choice that I've made lately. That phrase, all things work together for my good. Yes, all things work together for good. And it's like Emma Curtis Hopkins, the great teacher, says. She says, my good is my God. So I'm dedicating myself to this. I'm dedicating myself to this, practicing the presence, which includes seeing my life and the life and circumstances of all in the sense of wholeness. So it's like that was said, Jan said in the meditation, sometimes things don't always go. You're like, how can I see things when things aren't going well? How can I say that it's good? But again, we're going to go back to Emma Curtis Hopkins and say, judge not by appearances, judge by righteous judgment. And she's actually quoting the Bible. So judge not by appearances, right? But judge righteous judgment is this idea of looking at things in a whole, from a God lens, from a higher perspective, if you may. I'm going to use that, even though there's no higher or lower, but looking at it from a more whole perspective. So let me give you an example of things just not turning out right, but maybe finding the good in a circumstance or a situation. In 2021, I had a near-death experience. Now, not in the sense that I walked into the light and saw my relatives, not that kind of near-death experience. It was near-death because the doctor said if I hadn't gone to the ER when I did, I probably wouldn't have woken up in the morning. I had a saddle pulmonary embolism, and it took me out of commission for about a month, put me in intensive care for about a week. Now, most people will be like, why me? Why me? I never asked why me, why it happened to me. I never asked that question. I never really asked that question. Instead, I asked, because I was so freaked out by the whole situation, I asked, why did I live? I was so concerned with, I went into therapy, we're not against therapy. I went into therapy because I was like, why am I still alive? How come I survived this thing that most people don't survive, right? So sometimes when you go into that place of confronting the serious possibility of, I'm going to say, leaving this physical realm, because we know that life never ends, right? It's there's no beginning, there's no end, but it is kind of like that old spiritual says, you can drop the physical body, right? Sometimes when you do that, you come to clarity about purpose and health and life. It brings you to a place of I'm going to call it laser sharp precision. So I like to call it my run-in with the Grim Reaper. It helped me focus on my mental health, my spiritual health, and my physical health. And I was doing it, but not to the extent and not to the depth upon which I'm doing it now. That's a good that came out of what some people might think is a bad situation. That's the way that's my viewpoint now. And as time goes on, more will be revealed, I am sure. So that's the way it is, that sometimes when you're going through something, you can't understand why you're going through it just then. You don't understand what it means. But hold on, because life is good. And if it's not good, it will be good. And we believe that it will be good because there is only one. And that life is good, and God wants joy and love and happiness for and as and through you. So if it's not good now, it's going to get good. Don't let go. Don't let go. And be careful, because the mind will sometimes take you on a trip that's down the wrong road. You know, I walked away from there's this song in a chorus line, I think it is, What I Did for Love. Anyway, I walked away from a good job, my good house, my good everything. And I thought, oh my God. And I moved to a foreign country. I moved to South Korea. Why not? It seemed exciting. It seemed wonderful. And it was actually, I would not ever trade that part of my life for anything, because I love South Korea. I love the Korean people. I love the Korean food. I love it, love it, love it. But when I did it, I thought, well, I'm leaving the US, so all to Hades, right? But what I found out was that was just a trick of my mind. It wasn't the truth. When I came back, I had my retirement, I had my house. And guess what? I might have walked away from the relationship eventually, but that person became one of my dearest, closest friends and confidant. It shifted, it changed, it transformed. So sometimes you make that decision and you do it, and you don't know how it turns out really better than you thought. It turns out great. You know, my life transformed due to a lot of forgiveness and starting with self-forgiveness. So in your life, you might be going through things right now. You don't understand them. A loss of a job, a health situation. Maybe you're having a bad family connect. Maybe you're afraid of a bad family connection coming up at Christmas. Pray on it. Anyway, um, go to a practitioner and have them pray, because there's only one life, and you know that it's not good, it's going to get good. So no matter how messy or painful things look, know that things are working out for your good. So I like to say, as I walk through this life, I'm looking for God in the weeds. I'm looking for God in the roses, and I'm looking for God in the weeds. And if you're in the darkness of life, you know that when you seek God, that light will break through. It must break through. It has to break through. It's the law, because there's only one life, and that life is God's life, and that life is good. And that life is my life now. That's the prayer. So knowing that there's only one life, as you begin to see the good in your own life, you can look beyond your life. So you know, it's the end of the year. It's that time of reflection. So think about some of the things that have possibly happened this year that you may have, quote unquote, judged bad, and see how have they unfolded. What do they mean right now? And where do you want them to be? How do you want to transform it? So as you do that, as you kind of get closer and can see God, then you begin to be able to see it outside of yourself. You begin to see it in circumstances, in things that may or may not have anything to do with you. So I love this, that a long time ago, I was working in an agricultural organization here in California, and it's full of farmers. And California is known as the breadbasket of the world, right? And some of these farmers dressed in ways like people who I might have been taught as growing up as a little girl in Florida not to like, or to fear, mostly to fear, right? It's mostly this fear of the other. So these farmers, wonderful people, I was on my way to a meeting, and there was a group of men standing around. They had the big cowboy hats on, they had the big belt buckles, and they had their boots and their jeans, blah, blah. And I'm walking up to this meeting, and it's raining. They're out there, and they had like plastic saran wrap around their hats. And my first thought was, my God, how did I get here? And the second thought was, I truly love, in the divine sense, some of these guys, agape love. So I had to smile at myself, because it takes a lot to recognize the divine in those who you're taught to fear. But we can do it. We can do it, because there is an interconnectedness of all people. We're one unbroken whole. So I know that's a lot to take in. That's all people. All people are in that circle, not some people. That's your friends and your family, but also your frenemies. You know, you've heard of the frenemies, the people you don't like so much. They're in that circle too. The people where you feel comfortable, they're in that circle. The people around who you feel awkward, they're in that circle. The beggar on the street is in that circle, and the king on the throne is in that circle. That circle includes the superstar and the lady in the hospital fighting for her life. It includes the doctors trying to save her. We're all one. And what we do to another, we do to ourselves. But that's a sobering thought. What I like to think is, I like to imagine us like a string of lights. Because it's Christmas, because it's, you know, holiday time, I'll say holiday light. We're each shining, but we're all kind of linked on this cord of electricity, right? And if one light goes out, especially if it's on a Christmas tree, it affects all those other lights, right? So that's how our interconnectedness is. We impact each other emotionally, physically, both. When we hear of a tragedy, a tsunami, a war, a volcano, wildfires, I know that there's something deep inside of me, and I want to reach out, I want to help, I want to give. And I know that that idea is still in you, because we can see the humanity of the other, and then the divinity within us gets activated, and it wants to give, it wants to express, it wants to give, it wants to love, it wants to show that love, our sense of love for one another, that agape love, that love for mankind, or the Buddhists call it loving kindness. It's that oneness expressed through our lives. And when we walk in loving kindness and when we show agape love, that is how we can recognize, bring into our recognition that we are that one unbroken whole, that we are all living in this one ecosystem, just one. So when we look at life in the world through the lens of wholeness, when we employ loving kindness, agape love, then we can become that change that we want to see in the world. And one way to do this is to cultivate friendships, connections, seemingly with people unlike you, to share a smile at a passing stranger. You can do it right now. You can just think of someone you might be at odds with and purposefully bless them. See them in their good, see them in their wholeness, forgive them from afar, release them. Miracles happen. You know, this is a science full of demonstrations. So I had this great demonstration. There was someone that I was at odds with for, I'd say, 12 years. And we were in a situation together. And I know that each day that I saw that person, I would silently bless them and pray for their good. Now, it sounds namsy-pamsy, but this works. I'm not telling this person, I'm not telling anybody that I'm praying for their good, right? We get to this great event, we get to the end of this amazing event, and that person walks over to me, that person that I've been praying for and blessing, walks over to me, hugs me, and we wish the best for one another. Now, we're never going to be best friends. We may even never talk again. But that is a healing. That is a demonstration. That is that connection. So healings are possible. Wholeness is possible. Sound like a teacher, do your prayer work. Do your forgiveness. It works. I would go back to the 12. It works if you work it. It works. It works. It works. Bless and release. Bless and release. So anyway, what I'm really trying to say is that there's no one outside of the circle, that each and every one of us is spirit in form. We are God in action. We are arms and hands and feet and body of God. And as this, it moves in and around and through our lives and in and around each and every person you meet. So look for God in the weeds as well as in the roses. God is spirit, it's beauty, it's harmony, it's wholeness. And this is who you are. And it's a part of each and every one of us. So as we walk into this holiday season, in the season of light, let us practice seeing the good and God in everything and in everyone we meet. And always remember that if it's not good right this minute, if you're walking into the season in loneliness or maybe a grief, know that good it is, that there is a movement, that good is there. There is good there. And we will work on seeing the good. Sometimes you can't see it, sometimes when you're right up close to it, but the good is there. So that's my challenge, to just walk in that. Let's take this message into prayer. Yeah. Knowing that there is only one God. There is only one energy, and that energy is running in and around and through each of us. That energy, that very electricity of life, is the life that connects each and every one of us to each other and to God, that God is running in and around and through us. Oh, I just know that each of us is this energy. Each of us goes out and we each give love and joy and peace, that we each express God in the best and highest way that we know how. I am just speaking my word that this world is better because of each and every person here, and each and every person with the intention of making it better, that this world must be better, that there is a group of us that is raising the vibration of this world to one of peace and love and joy. And I'm just so grateful and thankful for this time of year when peace and love and joy come to the forefront. I'm just so grateful for this vibration, healing each other and healing the world. I'm so grateful and thankful for each person that sets this intention. So grateful and thankful for this world and this healing and this community. I'm thankful. And so I release this word into the law.